PowerShell Universal Dashboard allows you to create input controls that make it easy for your users to enter data into your website and actually have it execute commands. To do this, we use the commandlet new UD input. So let's take a look at the script that I have set up here. In my script, the first thing I'm doing is I'm importing the Universal Dashboard Community Edition module. The next thing I'm doing is I'm setting up Endpoint Initialization variable. This allows me to bring in variables, modules, functions into my Universal Dashboard endpoints. In this case, I'm bringing in the PS script root variable so that I can actually reference this particular path inside my Universal Dashboard endpoints. I'm also using the auto reload function of start UD dashboard. This allows me to reset the web server every single time I make a change to this file. So there's no need for me to start and stop the web server anytime I want to make a change. So to create an input form, what we're going to do is we're going to use new UD input. I specified a simple title of input and an endpoint script block. At the top of my endpoint script block, I have a param block here. What new UD input does is it looks at the param block and looks at the different parameters that are specified inside that param block. For each one of the parameters, it creates a new input field on the website. Then the user can enter data and it's passed in through this variable. The rest of this function takes that input field and then outputs it to a file that I have sitting right here. So let's take a look at the website. You can see that I have an input field here, and if I enter some test text and click submit, it'll execute that input form. And if I come back to my output, you'll see that it output to my output.txt file. So I can actually take input and output it to a file. So in addition to taking string input, you can also take things like Boolean variables. So if I set this to a bool instead of a string, what will happen is the input control on the user's screen will turn from a text box into a checkbox. If I check this checkbox and click submit, and we go back to our input or output text file, you'll see that it output the text value of true. So you could use the values that you pass in however you want. In this case, I'm just outputting them to a file. But you could call commandlets such as Active Directory commandlets or Hyper-V commandlets, whatever you want your users to have access to. In addition to being able to create checkboxes and text boxes, you can also create select drop-down lists. One way of doing that is to specify an enumeration value. So system.dayAweek is an enum value that has all the days of the week. It's just built into .NET. So now if we go back to our form, you'll see that I have a drop-down with all the different days of the week. If I were to select something like Thursday and click submit, in my output file, you'll see that Thursday was output to the file. Another way to generate a select dropdown without using an enum value is actually to use a validate set parameter. So in this case, I can actually specify the values that I want to allow in this field. So what new UD input will do then is it will create another dropdown, just as it did with the enum value, but based on your validate set parameters. So it works the same way. As I select Apple and I go to my output page, you'll see that Apple was output to my text file. One thing you may notice is that the text on the screen is based on the variable name. If you want to update that variable name, what you can do is you can specify help text. So if I go back to my param block and put a parameter attribute at the top and specify help text and give it favorite fruit, save that and go back to my website, you'll see that now it says favorite fruit instead of input field. So it's a little more user friendly. So you may have noticed that anytime I click submit, it just brings me back to the input form. If you want to kind of change the behavior of your input form, there's a couple different actions that you can take. The easiest action that you can take is to specify a toast. A toast is just a pop-up message that kind of specifies whatever you'd like inside the message. So in this case, I'm using new UD input action, specifying the toast parameter, and then giving it a value that I'd like to output when the user clicks the form. So if I select a grape and click submit, you'll see that grape popped up in a toast. In addition to being able to toast the user, what you can also do is you can redirect to other pages. So if I want to redirect to either an internal URL or an external URL to the dashboard, I can provide that URL in this new UD input action, redirect URL parameter. So now when I submit this, you'll see that it will redirect me from my dashboard to the website that I have specified in the redirect URL parameter. The final thing that you can do with new UD input action is actually changing the content of the input control. So rather than having the input control stay there after I click the button, in this case it will actually replace the input control with whatever control I want it to put in its place. In this case I'm creating a new UD card with a title based on the input field that I have specified. So that allows you to create a dynamic control based on whatever the user specifies. So if we save that, go back to the form, select one of the values and click submit, now you'll see that I have a UD card with the title of grape. So in this video we went over how to make simple input forms with PowerShell Universal Dashboard.